Earful Tower listeners, it is a Friday in a tiny little village called Puimirol, I can't pronounce it, but what I can tell you is that it's my birthday today and I'm celebrating in style in a lovely hotel with a restaurant with Michelin stars. That's a story for another time. Today we're actually talking about Bordeaux, beautiful, booming, bamboozling Bordeaux, where I've just spent a couple of days, but obviously I don't know anything about it. I do know Mike Foster, though, an Australian who lives there. He runs Le Map Bordeaux, which is like a guide to the city. He also runs the Bordeaux expat Facebook group, so he's really hands-on down in this city, which is, in case you're wondering, about 2 hours on the train away from Paris, down on the southwest side in France. Anyway, Mike shares with us what we decided to call the Bordeauxs and the Bordeauxn'ts. In other words, the things you should do when you're in town and the things you shouldn't do. And lastly, we recorded this episode on a really beautiful day in a park right in front of the Bordeaux Cathedral. So if you think you hear the sound of trams and people walking around, that's not in the background of where you are. That is in the background of the recording. It might sound like a bit of a Bordeaux to record in a park, but it seemed like a good idea at the time, and it gives you a bit of an ambience. You'll hear the trams coming past. You even hear someone playing music in the background. But anyway, now on with the episode. But first, a bit of music from Slim and the Beast.
Jump on my back, hold on tight, let's do it together, let's go for a ride, let's go for a ride.
And here we are sitting in a park in Bordeaux. Here I am with Mike Foster. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Ollie.
I think this is the first episode I've ever done in a park.
Really?
Yeah.
But why? That would be the obvious place to do one, wouldn't it?
What makes you think that?
I don't know. Parks are so friendly for conversation.
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess. But usually I'm in a studio, so it's a bit more of a relaxed...
That makes sense then.
Yeah.
Well, first time for something then.
Great. So what we've done here is you've come up with a list of what we've called Bordeauxs
and Bordeauxn'ts.
So it's essentially the things that you should do when you're in town and the things you shouldn't do. But more specifically, I think people need a picture of who you are.
Okay.
So I was wondering, tell the story.
And tell the story
that
how I
you
came
told.
to be.
How many times have you told this story?
Well, today. Well, so I'm, as we were saying before, I'm Australian. I'm from Sydney. I'm on the northern beaches, and I left Australia back in 2004 to a little bit like you, maybe, to go with a backpack, as many Australians seem to do, is we leave and we go backpacking. And I went backpacking through Asia and spent time in India and doing all of this. And I landed myself in London, where I worked for Woolworths, which is now, if you know London, that was the powerhouse of high street shopping. Then I met my wife on holidays in Morocco.
French woman?
French lady, yeah. Right. She's from the region here, and as they say in French, shabba-dabba-da.
Hang on, what? Is that what they say in French?
When like there's a love story, there's usually shabba-dabba-da.
What does that mean, though?
It means like love music or something like that.
Really?
Shabba-dabba-da, then sparks flew.
Is it sort of like yada yada yada, but a more romantic version?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Right,
yeah. So shabba-dabba-da.
I heard a new saying the other day.
What was that?
So I was I was trying to, I don't know if you can negotiate the price of a hotel room. Oh, by the way, we should mention the sound of trams, which is very evident. That's part of life in Bordeaux, isn't it?
Most definitely.
Right.
That's the way to get round.
So if you're sitting here listening somewhere in the world and you're thinking, there's a tram going past us. No, it's just a tram going past us.
Yes.
Nothing to worry about. Anyway, so I was about to negotiate on the price of a hotel, what's it called? A gîte? A chambre d'hôte?
Yeah, chambre d'hôte.
What is that called?
So it's like a B&B or
a B&B.
Yeah.
And I said to him, can you negotiate on these prices? And he goes, what do you think? I'm selling you a rug? It's a room. There's a price. I was like, okay. But that's a saying in French, apparently.
Yeah, well, you got to try, right?
Yeah, anyway, I went off topic immediately. So you shabba-dabba-doomed with
my wife, and then we ferried back between London and Bordeaux for a year. And then it was like, well, hey, let's get together and make something out of this permanently, and I moved to Bordeaux in 2007.
Right.
And as I mentioned to you before, that was meant to be for 1 year. It's now 11 years later, 3 kids, mortgage, my life pretty well integrated into life here, and I love it. It's good.
And how does that, do you find there are a lot of people, in Paris there are a lot of people with that kind of story. Do you find that in Bordeaux as well?
More and more I've seen Bordeaux become an international destination. more and more people arriving here, either through relation, through work, or just for the sheer love of the city. But I know that it's probably to a lesser extent of what you find in Paris, but definitely the international community is very strong here in Bordeaux, even if it's small.
And before we get into this, the Bordeauxs and the Bordeauxn'ts, which we're still on the fence about whether that makes sense to say the Bordeauxs.
Why it'll work?
Yeah, right. I thought we'd talk about this idea of Bordeaux being this kind of booming city.
Sure.
Which, I mean, we've seen in the papers a lot in the past 5-10 years that this place is really taking off. And how do you sort of notice that?
Yeah.
Besides the fact that there are trams going past every 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Well, the trams were here when I arrived in 2007. But what you would have seen maybe 15 years ago is a lot of cars. Public transport consisted of buses, whereas now the mayor, Alain Juppé, he was the spearhead of putting trams into the city, and there's a lot of focus on renewable energies, I suppose. The city's at this real cusp of making the city great again. I'm not referencing anyone there,
Right.
Not at all.
Is Juppé like a superhero to the Bordelais?
It depends on who you talk to, but I don't think people can refute the fact that he's done good things for the city. The city has come on leaps and bounds. You know, the fact that you've got a lot of job creation. Sydney, actually, I was going to say Bordeaux sort of reminds me of what Sydney was, maybe back in the 80s, where you would have like a lot of vacated old factories close to the CBD, which are now being reconverted and redeveloped into either new construction businesses and opportunities. So a lot of people are moving to Bordeaux for opportunities, and also the love of le Sud-Ouest, the southwest of France.
And you get a lot of tourists as well. It's not just people.
Definitely, we've seen the increase in tourism like tenfold. I remember walking around town.
Tenfold?
Oh, hey, why not? Why not?
Who's counting?
Who's counting?
Someone's counting.
No, someone at the Office of Tourism maybe, but I remember when I moved here, speaking in public in English, I'd have people look at me like, hey, there's an English speaker.
Right.
Whereas
It wasn't just the Australian accent, was it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But now I think you're hard pressed not to feel that international vibe all year round. And we're not just talking through the summer months either, you know, it's 12 months of the year.
Right. Okay, so keeping in mind that a lot of people that listen to the Earful Tower are perhaps more likely to be going to Paris and less likely to be moving to Bordeaux, what we've got written on paper in front of us here are the tips for if you were to visit the do's and the don'ts. We've got 3 of each, and I figured that we'd start with the do's.
The do's,
the
good way.
Bordeauxs.
Yeah, very good idea.
So maybe you can tell us what number 1 is on the list. And
What do we
explain
got?
yourself.
All right, so the Bordeauxs is essentially what we're going to say is that you've arrived in Paris. Bordeaux is a viable option, right? It's only 2 hours by train, TGV, down to the south.
Which is a recent addition. I didn't
Yeah,
used to be that
they
quick.
used to always be TGV, but it was more like 3 hours or something like this. But they've knocked it on the head. Now they've got a fast train that just comes straight down here in 2 hours.
Yeah, they must have taken out the detour via Clermont-Ferrand or something,
Something like
so
that.
no one had the brainwave before.
Exactly,
Right.
funny that. So if you do find yourself down here, the Bordeaux would be to walk. Huh?
To walk.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is funny that we could say that, but you know, a lot of cities could be that way inclined, but Bordeaux is definitely a walking city. Walking or biking city, shall we say. Everything is concentrated into a CBD, where you can find shopping regions, restaurants, and then you can actually find the cultural things that are just outside of the commercial district, if you like the Quartier Saint-Michel, where you can find really large organic markets, and you get the best couscous in town in Saint-Michel. So the idea would be take a pair of walking shoes.
So
Or do walk.
So while Bordeaux is large, it's not anywhere near the size of something like London, where no one would say London is a walking city. Paris, on the other hand, is a walking city, even though it's considerably bigger than Bordeaux, I think.
Yes.
But Bordeaux, as far as I've seen on this travel, is considerably bigger than anything else.
Yes.
Which is surprising that it's walkable. I mean, like, is it that you can get from one end to the other on foot, or is it?
Yeah, you can if you're prepared to walk.
Yeah.
And like when I say prepared to walk, it's a good option to mix up the tram and walking,
Right.
because the tram serves all of the main areas that you need to go to, and once you arrive in that area, you jump off and you walk. You know, the tram cars that you buy, they're valuable for 1 hour. Every time that you buy the ticket, you validate it. That's valid for 1 hour, and you buy, you know, like 10 trips for like €12 or something.
Right. And we just done a walk ourselves.
Yeah.
49 minutes.
That was long, hey?
We did a walk show for you subscribers to the Earful Tower on Patreon. We did a 49-minute walk from, what was it, Place de Quinconce?
Yeah.
Back to where we're sitting now.
Yeah.
Which was that was a thorough one. Time flew.
Yeah, it did, but you know, we took time to admire the city as well. You know, you pointed out the shoe scrapers.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with shoe scrapers.
Oh, hey, you know, don't find them in Oz, do you?
I think what was really interesting about the people in Bordeaux, I've never done a walk show where so many people waved.
Yeah, they're your subscribers in hiding.
It was pretty cool though. People seem to be really friendly here.
They're the good mentality. I think Bordeaux, or like the Bordelais, the locals from here, they do get a bad rap.
Do they?
To be what they do. A lot of French people would say that the Bordeaux or the Bordelais would be a little bit cold. It can be true, but
that's weird for a warm climate place.
I know, but when I say cold, I mean like in their attitude.
No, I know what you mean, but
yeah.
I mean when places are warm, people tend to be warm-spirited as well.
Oh, I think that could also go with the history in the bourgeois or the rich upper class that came from the wine industry, the wine trade back in the day. But honestly, you once you get to know the locals here, it might take a little bit longer than we're used to in Australia.
Right.
That could be in France as well. But once you're in there, they're very solid and warm-hearted people.
Right. What about a Bordeaux involving food?
Bordeaux is definitely to make
We're
sure.
still not got the hang of the
No, Bordeaux. It's good as a tongue twister. Well, hey, if you come down to the southwest, you got to eat confit canard, no?
Confit canard. So what's that?
Or a bit of foie gras.
So you got to explain it to the people at home.
So confit canard is essentially chicken thigh, or you know, the part of a canard is chicken, and usually it's served with just potatoes.
Hang on, isn't that duck?
Duck, sorry, what did I say?
Chicken.
Oh, did I say chicken? I'm meaning duck.
Okay,
Everything tastes like chicken.
I don't believe your list at all anymore.
No, duck.
But as you said before we started, you've gone French.
Well, I have to convert things because, like, it's funny because I think today I've used French words in our English conversation, and it gets to the point where because the majority of my entourage, if you like, is in French.
You just did it.
Yeah, but that's entourage.
Hang on, so back to the duck thigh.
Yeah,
okay.
so canard.
So
Confit
imagine
canard.
someone's listening, they've got no idea what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
so on entrée, for the entrée, you come down and you would order foie gras, which is like goose liver.
Yep.
All right, so that's one of the things that you would definitely order for the entrée. For main, you would order confit canard, which is duck and potatoes. And for dessert, maybe you'd order yourself a cannelé.
Which we tasted on the walk show as well.
That's right, yeah, which is a pastry made in Bordeaux. It's like a soft rum and vanilla pastry. Very, very nice to eat.
So there you go. You got your whole menu set up.
Boom.
Entree,
Yeah.
main,
Yeah.
and
With a glass of Saint-Emilion.
That's the wine from just next region over.
That's correct.
Next city over.
That's correct. Well, the town, provincial, yeah.
That could be something we talk about soon, I have a feeling.
Yes,
Glancing
possibly.
at the list
Yeah,
over your shoulder.
possibly.
Okay, we need another Bordeaux.
Bordeaux. All right. So the last
third.
Bordeaux is that Bordeaux is a history museum in itself. You know, you can walk around here, especially people coming from like Australia or America or Canada, where actually America and Canada do have these older architectural styles, but from Australia it was something very striking for me. The city itself is a museum, but we also have a lot of other museums that has just been created or have been in place for the last 10, 15, 20 years. One being the Cité de Vin, which opened up around about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's the wine museum.
Have you said what the do is?
That is the do, is to go to see a lot of these other museums that are in Bordeaux.
Do the museum.
Yeah, sure.
And you said, and the best one?
Is the Cité de Vin.
Okay.
With the Art de Contemporain, the CAPC, but we can provide a list on your website, and from there you can have a full guide.
That'd be the earfultower.com, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Nice one.
So what this is I've not been there yet. I think I'm going to go there tomorrow, but this is a museum where it looks...
It looks a big Guggenheim.
It's like a big... It looks kind of like a big stuffed goose liver.
Yeah, it's a big foie gras.
Yeah, but what's inside is like... I've heard that they said it's like a amusement park for adults, but I don't know if that's fair.
It's an amusement park in the sense that it's a wine museum. It's a contemporary building that was constructed for the celebration and documentation and of wine and the culture of wine, because Bordeaux is such obviously a strong wine region, because we have some of the best wines in the world. The idea was to provide tourists and locals alike a place where you can go, you can learn about wine. There's workshops in English as well,
Right.
so definitely check out their website, that you can go and learn about wine, appreciate wine, and also go to the very top of this large building and have a beautiful view over the port and the
Right.
city of Bordeaux.
Do you think, on a different note, if you Google the word Bordeaux, is the top hit something about wine or is it the city?
It possibly could be about the city now.
Which is more popular?
Probably the wine region. Well, Bordeaux is synonymous with wine.
Yeah.
You know, but that's when I met my wife, and she's like, "I'm from Bordeaux," and I'm like, "Wine, right?"
Yeah.
I didn't know anything else about Bordeaux.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's the do's.
There's the do's, 3 do's.
Yeah.
And these, like you said, these will all be written down on the earfultower.com, as usual. But we need to talk about the Bordeauxn'ts. Some tips for people. Maybe they're coming for a weekend, maybe they're coming for a week, maybe they're thinking about coming and they want to know what to do.
Yeah, sure.
We need to also tell them what not to do,
Yeah.
aka the Bordeauxn'ts.
The Bordeauxn'ts.
So the first one you've got written here is don't walk in front of a tram.
Yeah, which sounds kind of like strange, but
Right.
or quite obvious.
Yeah.
But the thing is that as we're talking about the trams being in place, that the trams are very silent. They run on electricity, they recharge on a charging station, and then they go off. And the problem is that the tram lines aren't segregated from the sidewalks and the roads. So every year, unfortunately, there's accidents. The trams are, what did we count? There's maybe like 10 carriages. So they're like 20 rhinos running down at you, you know? And imagine if you run out in front of 20 rhinos, how long they're going to take to stop.
Sure.
And the idea is that when you're walking around Bordeaux is to make sure, or don't get hit by a tram by looking where you're walking.
They are silent. I'll be. It wouldn't surprise me if, especially on like a Friday night, Saturday night, when people have had a few drinks,
Sure.
a few glasses of Bordeaux,
Sure.
that there's not.
There's always accidents.
You ever seen one?
An accident?
Yeah.
I've seen not the result of an accident. I've been on the tram when or cars have been hit.
Yeah.
Sure. A lot of bicycles get hit by the trams because a lot of people wear headphones while they cycle, which is
That could be a don't. Don't wear headphones when you're cycling or walking.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are bikes for hire. You know, you can definitely grab a bike, or there's tour operators that do it as well. So.
All right, so guys listening, don't get hit by a tram, please.
Exactly.
That would ruin your whole weekend. Wouldn't it?
He would.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else have you got here?
So, don't stay in town. Bordeaux, even though we're selling Bordeaux and it's a great city and we love Bordeaux, there's other stuff to see that's accessible from Bordeaux.
Okay.
Which you're alluding to. Saint-Emilion, for
That's
one
right.
thing. If you searched on Google, like Bordeaux Wine Village, for example, I'm sure you're going to get Saint-Emilion. It's a UNESCO village created by monks in the vineyards to the east of
to the
Bordeaux,
east.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful place, you know, like not only that you walk around the towns, you can go do visits in chateaus and tastings. They have like a monolithic church there. You know what a monolithic church is?
It's
you can
where
grab
there's
it.
only one lithic.
That's right.
What's a
alright?
lithic?
I don't know. Well, the idea is that it was carved out of a large mountain top, right? And what the monks did back in the day, they made their church out of the carving all of the sandstone, which gets used in the buildings that you'll see when you come to Bordeaux. It was quarries, and then they converted the quarries into a large monolithic church.
So the idea is that you can do day trips from here.
Definitely.
Another would be Dune de Pilar
Definitely, because we're only around about an hour's drive to the coast.
in a car.
In a car,
Yeah.
not on a scooter.
So tell me about this Dune de Pilar. I've never been, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. but
Yeah,
what's
well,
the
next
deal there?
time. Well, the Dune de Pilar, it sits on the Bassin de Arcachon, so it's the Arcachon Basin or the bay. And it's a huge area of water that is coming off the Atlantic coast. And it's beautiful. The Arcachon city itself is beautiful to see, coastal provincial town in Ville d'été, so what they used to call like a summer town, or a Ville d'hiver, sorry, a winter town where you'd go charge your batteries. And the Dune de Pilar is, I believe, the tallest sand dune in Europe.
Right.
So you climb all the way up to this like sand mountain, and then you stand like free as a bird and have a beautiful view over the bassin.
Does it remind you of Australia in a way? The fact that it's
The
big?
culture out there, definitely.
But I just mean the idea of a big sand dune, like the kind of big, great
Yeah.
outdoors kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely, because behind that is a large pine forest,
Right.
and you're very connected to the nature out there. And actually, I feel very in kin with the people that live out there, because it's that beach quality that I
Right.
grew up when I grew up on the northern beaches in Sydney. That's no shoes and shorts, to put it mildly.
Whereas in Bordeaux, they tend to be quite. I've noticed they tend to be. They dress nicely.
Yeah, it's more
make
of
an effort.
it's an urban environment.
Yeah.
It's an urban environment. You could say like the hipsters have really staked their claim in Bordeaux.
Yeah. Okay, so you've done 3 Bordeauxs and 3 Bordeauxn'ts. We need to wrap it up now with another Bordeauxn't.
Yep.
So what would that be?
Don't come to Bordeaux and order a pain au chocolat.
What? Why not?
No, because pain au chocolat is what they call a chocolate croissant in the north.
Ah, okay.
So north of Bordeaux, basically.
Right. So what are you meant to do?
We come down here and we say, I would like, or je voudrais, une chocolatine.
Okay, so it's the same thing.
Yeah,
You can still order the thing,
Yeah.
but you have to call it by a different
a
name.
chocolatine.
Why is that? Do you know why?
I cannot tell you. It's just, why people order pots and pints
Yeah.
in Melbourne, and why we order scooter and middies in Sydney. It's
Right.
just the way it is. But French people can really draw a line between the regions. In the southwest it's chocolatine, all the way down to the Spanish border, chocolatine. Whereas north of us is pain au chocolat.
So what happens if you do go into a place? Have you ever done it and said, "Yeah, I'll take a pain au chocolat"? Do they make a big deal about it, or is it just some of the
Well, it depends on the person that you find. They
Really?
might say, ici or here, we call it pain au chocolat, or maybe they just look at you and pretend they don't understand.
It's so weird. I know that there's one bakery that's kind of famous in Paris called, I think it's called Du Pain et des Idées, which is a sort of... I had a pastry chef on the show, David Leibovitz, once, and I said, where's the best croissant in town? He said there. And I went in there to taste it. Good croissant, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I looked at the pain au chocolat, and they're called chocolatines in Paris.
Hey.
What do you make of that?
I think it might have been a guy from the southwest that moved to Paris and started making pastries up there.
Could be.
Ah.
Could be. Okay, well, that's something to think about. Language tip. You've given us language tips, food tips,
Yeah.
and things to see and not to see.
Yeah, totally.
What about in general? Like, we can finish up on, what else is happening in Bordeaux that we need to think about?
Bordeaux, there's so many events and cultural events. In summer, they have this thing called the Fête de Vin. This is an important part in our calendar. It's the wine festival, or the Fête de Fleuve, which is alternate years. They take on the quays that we walk near the Miroir d'Eau, the water mirror. They block all of that off, and it's a wine extravaganza.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a very large international festival, bringing all of the large wine chateaus and negociants and people in the wine industry. They set up stage, and there's just one large big tasting. And they have events, fireworks, so it's sort of like our national day, if you like. It's with that much importance.
And when is it?
It's in July.
So I think I might book a ticket for Bordeaux and shadabadabada.
Shabba-dabba-dabba.
What is it? Shabadabadabba.
Sounds something like the Flintstones, doesn't
It does.
it?
Shabadabadoo. Okay, well, that sounds like a good time to come to Bordeaux, and I might think about it. And of course, a final plug for what you're doing. If people have listened this far, they should be reminded, I think.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about Le Map.
Okay, so Le Map is a project that was created by Dan Rock, who's an American. It's a foldable map and website. It's a city guide. The idea is that we've been here that long, we are the locals. So the city guide's made by locals for people coming to Bordeaux. We're giving you our recommendations because we've been there and done that, and we were disappointed when we didn't find the good things.
Right.
So on our website, which is lemap-bordeaux.com, is where you'll find all of our guide to Bordeaux, if you like. And also I do another project called Bordeaux Expats. And this is something where it's more of a thing for the community about not feeling lost like
I reckon there'll
as an
be people in
international.
Bordeaux listening to this. You can talk to them.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, is that we're all part of an international community. Even the French people that live here are part of our international
And
community,
so what
like
happens
it or
on
not.
this group?
On the group is the way that we exchange, the tips and the handy things about how to integrate into life here. Because when you arrive to live, Visiting is one thing because we're here for a certain time, but when you stay, it's nice to have these support mechanisms. And Le Map Bordeaux is one support mechanism for us getting around town and finding the good things, and Bordeaux Expats is a exchange for a community to find out how we can best support each other.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll check it out. I think I'm already a member of the group,
You
or
are.
both. Recommend all the rest of you guys check it out. Also, don't forget to check out the walk that Mike and I just did around what felt like the entire town. Really interesting. My first walk around, it was brilliant. And as for me, I'm going to go back down to the English bookshop down the road
And
pick
get
up
it.
my copy of A Year in Provence for the Earful Towers book club that's about to begin. What you guys need to do, find the same book, start reading it, and the rest of the instructions will become clear as I figure them out.
Good luck, Ollie.
Mike, you're going to join the group, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Have you read that book?
Not yet.
No,
Not
me
yet,
neither.
but you've told me I need to.
Well, I think it could be really interesting.
Yeah, I think it should be really interesting.
Well, thank you for your time,
Thank you, Ollie.
and always a pleasure to have another Australian accent on
Yeah,
the show.
great. All the best to you.
Thank you. You too, mate.
Cheers.
There you have it. That was Mike Foster talking all about Bordeaux. I'll be back on Monday with Lena to talk about the latest from the road. A lot has happened even since we were in Bordeaux, including drinks with a mayor of a really small village in France, some of the strangest accent sounds that we've heard in the whole country, and a nice little story about eggs and tomatoes, not to mention this fantastic hotel where I'm staying for my birthday. And lastly, a big shout out to Mute Monkey on Instagram, who pointed out that she was indeed the 2000th follower of the Earful Tower. Have you followed yet? Talk soon. Au revoir.